said that it is comparable, that Pakistan, Afghanistan, and India, Bangladesh comparable. On what basis?
Sir, I'm not saying what is your perspective. I'm talking how we looked India managing things in Bangladesh through Hasina Wajid. That is my
But
perspective.
you should do it on the basis of facts, not.
I'm
And
doing on a
your
basis of
relationship with Afghanistan is a long drawn relationship, and everybody knows about it. Why are you bringing
I have
Bangladesh
my
India relationship there?
sir, I have my views. I may be wrong, but I have
Yes,
those
of
views.
course.
I want
That
to
is the
tend
problem. That
to.
is if you just look at the map of Bangladesh,
Mhm.
India is literally our only neighbor. Really very important. Indian media made us like a Hindu hating country. Hindu killing. You are using the word genocide. Have you tried to see what is the meaning of genocide? And it continues. Even in yesterday India Today video, I saw that the term being used, genocide. Yes, some incidents did occur, and I have said in previous interviews that
Yes.
we as a Bangladeshi, we feel, in a way, we feel that it shouldn't have happened. We Bangladeshis have no capacity to chalk our own future. It has to be Pakistan or it has to be China. I mean, are we a bunch of puppets? Now, that is where the problem starts. That in the Indian mindset, you do not give due respect to your neighbors.
As India celebrates 75 years of being a republic, Worldview with Swasti this week dedicates this episode to India's posture in its contested and volatile neighborhood. The issue today is Bangladesh, a cozying up between Dhaka and Islamabad amid the unmissable backing from China. Are these contours of a third front? How should India respond? But even before responding, how should India analyze it? Before I go further, I want the viewers to take a look at this video.
The people of Bangladesh started hating the regime and started hating India because it was not a secret that India had that thing, etc. So anything that the Indians said was taken on the opposite side. As a matter of fact, Pakistan benefited, in a perverse way.
With respect to Bangladesh, there is a reason why the 1971 war has such preeminence in Indian strategic discourse. It was our first major military and diplomatic victory after a crushing defeat at China's hands in 1962. 1971 established India's preeminence in the Indian subcontinent at the military, geostrategic, and geopolitical level. However, with Hasina's ouster, a new reflection is warranted. Has India made the mistake of engaging with preferred pro India regimes and factions instead of relevant stakeholders at large? Is India's preference for status quoism hindering our adapting to a fluid world order around us? Do we need to change the strategic lens of looking at geopolitical events with strategic clarity? How do we prioritize India's interests in a fast changing world, which doesn't seem under much obligation to make sense to our preferred strategic calculus? To have an open debate on the alleged third front in Bangladesh backed by Pakistan and China, I decided to have with me today voices from those very countries. I'm very pleased to welcome the celebrated Bangladeshi public intellectual and journalist, editor of the Daily Star, Mr. Mehfooz Anam, who's joining us from Dhaka, and Dr. Kamar Chima, noted Pakistani defense expert and commentator, joining me from Islamabad. Without further ado, let me dive deep into the rugged terrain of asking probing questions. There is hardly a black and a white, but there are perspectives and national interests. And with that commitment to nation first, let me open the debate.
And like I was mentioning, that today is, of course, India's Republic Day. We are celebrating India's Republic Day, and we are in this reality today where the Indian subcontinent seems to be extremely unstable from India's perspective. Of course, you may have a different perspective. A lot is going on in both your countries. I will first come to Mehfooz Saab because recently, last year, there was a coup. The long-standing government headed by Sheikh Hasina fell, and I think the whole world watched the way she was ousted. And ever since, there's been an interim government. And so that's on the one hand. Of course, India has major stakes there because India was instrumental in the liberation of Bangladesh in 1971. On the other hand, we have a Pakistan. From our perspective, Pakistan is also extremely unstable because of its domestic turmoils with respect to Imran Khan's recent sentencing. But not just that, also with respect to all the tensions along the Durand line and the way Pakistan's policy has kind of failed in Afghanistan. And what really concerns us now is that for the first time we see after 1971 that in that Pakistan and Bangladesh seem to be on the same strategic page in a way that they were not there before. So nobody is denying that there was no trade or there was no strategic connection or no cooperation. But the way it is happening now is something which has been rather unprecedented, especially after 1971. I'm referring to high level delegations visiting from the armed forces side. There are also the ISI, major generals who are visiting, their Bangladeshi counterparts. Bangladesh has gone to China. So please help me understand, how should India look at it? Is it really the beginning of a third front for India? I would start with you, Mehfooz Saab.
Thank you very much. I want this discussion to really have a very open mind about it. But, madam, if I may say so, your very introductory narrative is full of prejudices and full of views that I don't think reflect the reality. You started by saying that India has a lot of stake in Bangladesh because it helped Bangladesh in 1971. I mean, is that the basis of India's relationship with Bangladesh? 1971, it is now 53 years that have passed. And we have had a lot of experience between Bangladesh and India. So if you hark back on 71, and that has been one of the issues, you see, the implicit message from India always was that, listen, 71, we helped you, so never forget to be grateful. Okay? So this gratitude narrative implicitly, in a way, was always there. We are very grateful, but now we are an independent country. And in countries you have bilateral issues, and with India it is our biggest neighbor, and a lot of issues, positive and negative, but it can only be addressed if you have an open mind. Now, you
Mhm.
just, in an introduction, you said that ISIS chief visited Bangladesh. Now, that's not a fact. Now, what we have noticed that after the 5th August event,
Mhm.
honestly speaking, I am a journalist and I have a lot of respect for Indian journalism. But the way you have narrated these facts, the way you have interpreted these facts, they are not based on facts. They
Right.
are based on a perspective which is totally yours, which you have a right to have. But they have to reflect the reality. Now, your narrative has been that these changes in Bangladesh occurred either with the help of ISI of Pakistan, or with Chinese involvement, or with CIA involvement. The implicit message being that we Bangladeshis have no capacity to chalk our own future. It has to be Pakistan or it has to be China. I mean, are we a bunch of puppets?
Hmm.
Now, that is where the problem starts. That in the
Yes.
Indian mindset, you do not give due respect to your neighbors. So when Nepal moves, does something, is somebody else involved? If Sri Lanka goes somewhere, is somebody else involved? And in my country, I'm telling you, after this 5th August event,
Mhm.
we have followed with very, very sadness the narrative, the perspective. Yesterday, I was
Yes.
looking at India Today, a talk show in which the heading was, "Should India watch or step in?" Now, when
Hmm.
you are having a talk show on a neighbor and you are saying, should we step in, how do you think we look at it? Now, I'm not saying that we have not made any mistake. We are. There was a Facebook post by one of the
Hmm.
members of the interim government which is showing India's map in a way, but it was totally rejected by Bangladesh. The government forced the removal of that. So it was one person's individual view. But that has now taken as Bangladesh's view about Indian security and all that. So my plea to you is that if we really want a very stable relationship, we have to first understand what are we. Now, my view here is that because Bangladesh is a Muslim majority country,
Right.
India's view about Bangladesh is actually taken from their experience of Pakistan. If I may, you see, like you are looking, you are looking through a binocular on Pakistan, let's say, and you have like many years of your experiences with Pakistan. So that mindset is now being transferred on Bangladesh because Bangladesh happens to be a Muslim majority country. And according to many, I'm not saying you, but Muslims can't be, normal people. They will have to be extremists. They will have to be terrorists. And therefore, when we say talk about with pride about our Islamic heritage, you are
Mm-hmm.
uncomfortable. You are very uncomfortable. Now, how
Mm-hmm.
can that be? Are you not very comfortable with your Hindu identity? Hasn't India changed a lot in the last few years from the Nehruvian India to BJP and Modi India? Have we reacted with shout and shirk and anger about how India has transformed itself? So
Hmm.
why are you so suspicious? Why are
Right.
you so uneasy about what is going on in Bangladesh? My first request is get
Right.
your facts right. Please
Okay.
get your facts right. And then you have the liberty for your interpretation.
No, I'm very happy you brought that out, Mehfooz, because see, even from India's perspective, and because I really welcome the fact that we are trying to have an open discussion, because
Please.
I am also of the view that usually what happens is that we get together Indians to speak about Bangladesh, then we get together Indians to speak about Pakistan, and likewise, you get perhaps Bangladeshis to get together to speak about India. So I think what we need to do, especially in this regard, is to actually talk to each other rather than talking at each other. And I'm sure
Absolutely.
I'm happy that you kind of put that into perspective. That's the first thing that I kind of allude to. The second thing that I want to also allude to and congratulate you for is that from India's perspective, I think it is important that we now understand that we have been extremely status quoist in our interpretation not only of the neighborhood but of our foreign policy at large. India has not been very forthcoming in reading the realities on the ground. Whether you look at Nepal, I mean, the king had completely lost support, but we went on backing him. Similarly, a similar problem we saw in Sri Lanka, a similar problem we saw in Bangladesh, that we kept on backing Hasina, not being able to read the reality on the ground that she is not liked by the people, and this is going to backfire. And when it did, it kind of really it really went down south. Now, very quickly, I am with you when you say that we need a different kind of a lens. We cannot be using the old lens to look at these countries, because that then robs them of agency. And I think that is the central question that you are trying to posit, that Bangladeshis have their own agency. Kindly do not rob us of our agency and tell us that we are unable to do anything, and it's only the foreign powers
Absolutely.
that are making us see a government and see a government go, etc. I'm happy you pointed that out, because the idea is to have a constructive discussion on this, absolutely. And that is the reason of actually asking both of you to come, because we want to keep it as authentic as possible. Now, with that, let me come to Dr. Chima. Dr. Chima, you recently made a comment and said that you kind of created an equivalence, and I want you to go a little bit deeper into that, because I found it interesting. You said that just as Pakistan's micromanagement of Afghanistan failed and backfired, you said that you're of the opinion that India's micromanagement of Bangladesh also failed. Now, when you say micromanagement, of course, I to some extent understand where this is coming from. But on the other hand, I also feel that it's not like a perfect equivalence. There are certain very genuine differences. The 1971 liberation happened because the Bangladeshi people, wanted it. In the case of Pakistan, Afghanistan, the Durand line always divided the Pashtuns. It was never really accepted by them. So, what makes you say this? I mean, would you like to go into nuances of when you say that this this equivalence of a big neighbor managing or micromanaging, its other neighbor, and it fails? And what is the strategic implication that you're trying to get to?
Well, frankly speaking, first of all, happy Republic Day to the people of India, and it's great to be in the discussion.
Thank you.
Well, frankly speaking, I think the insecurities of India and Pakistan has basically led to having, micromanaging Bangladesh and Afghanistan. So, for
Mm-hmm.
example, Pakistan in the 80s, 90s had this approach of strategic depth in case India attacks us, so we will use second strike, so on and so forth. And similarly, India had that kind of insecurity and they wanted to have a complete influence and control over Bangladesh. So, for
Mm-hmm.
instance, in Pakistan's case, I believe we try to micromanage Afghanistan in many ways, and we call that there is a dusty road to New Delhi and there is a golden road to Kabul. And today we find that there is a dusty road to both the capitals because of one reason or the other reason.
Mm-hmm.
In my assessment, so I think, and that's what the Indians have been doing. And Indians thought that the only way to Bangladesh is talking only with Hasina Wajid and not to the people of Bangladesh. So why India wanted to see Bangladesh from the lens of Hasina Wajid? I think this is something very, very serious. And that's, India calls itself the largest democracy, but it still wants to support the strong men and women and not the people of that country. So similarly, Pakistan has learned its lesson where the Afghan Taliban these days hosting terrorist organizations there, and they're not talking or engaging with Pakistan in a bilateral way, the way they should talk. But this is the logic that we should listen to the people of people, and we should not only support the strong men and women. For example, Hasina can fulfill whatever India needs in Bangladesh, and the Taliban can fulfill what Pakistan needs. I think we shouldn't look things from that lens. This was, I think, my perspective on this.
Right.
May
Now,
I say something?
yeah, of course, Mehfooz Saab. Yes, please.
See, Dr. Chima, I say with all my respect for you that when you compare Pakistan's relationship with Afghanistan and then say micromanage Pakistan, micromanaged Afghanistan, so India micromanaged Bangladesh, you have the same mindset of a big power who thinks that a small country can't do anything. How did India micromanage Bangladesh? What
Let me
evidence do you have of that? Now, of
well,
course, India put all its eggs on one basket of Hasina. That's a bilateral relationship in which India made a big blunder. It missed the people. But your assumption that it was micromanaging, it was telling us go left, go right, go this, do this. This is a mindset. Please get out of it. Both
well,
India and Pakistan, I'm requesting you.
I just have a point to make on this. Obviously, individuals in Bangladesh may have a perception or what Sir is speaking, but the question is, we are looking from what Modi government is doing. It's not that what is Bangladesh's view. What
No,
Modi government
you said that it is comparable. That Pakistan, Afghanistan, and India, Bangladesh comparable. On what basis?
Sir, I'm not saying what is your perspective. I'm talking how we looked India managing things in Bangladesh through Hasina Wajid. That is my
But
perspective.
you should do it on the basis of facts, not.
I'm
And
doing on a
your
basis of
relationship with Afghanistan is a long drawn relationship, and everybody knows about it. Why are you bringing
I have
Bangladesh
my,
India relationship there?
sir, I have my views. I may be wrong, but I have those
Of
views.
course.
I want
That
to
is the
present
problem. That
those,
is the problem.
present.
That India looks at Bangladesh like a puppet. You are very happy that Bangladesh is now having a problem
I think we
because
are
of
getting into.
understanding. You are very
No,
happy about it.
we will get to that if I may be allowed
Just
to.
a moment. Just a moment. We are getting
Yes.
into an unnecessary discussion. The only thing which I am saying is I have my view, and we have seen how Narendra Modi and his government micromanaging Sheikh Hasina Wajid in so many. We have this view, and we have examples. I can quote 10
No,
examples of that.
I will come to that, Chima
Please
Saab.
give me one.
Yeah, I will come to that. In fact, I will come to
Just bringing Hasina to the G20 to talk to the Joe Biden was one thing, sir, and we know that, and there are many others I can talk.
No, I mean, I'm going to come to that, of course, because this is not something where we can actually get at exact answers. It's not like checking a box and, finding an answer that way. I am going to come to that. And one of the reasons why we have this discussion is that many a times you may have noticed in your own experiences that discussions become, behesbazi instead of really trying to unravel the complexity of the situation at hand. So, with that, let me, just open another thing. And when, Mehfooz Saab said this thing about why are you uncomfortable? By you here, he meant India. In the first set of remarks, he said that what makes you uncomfortable if the people of Bangladesh, are not happy with Hasina, if the people of Bangladesh want a different government, what makes India uncomfortable? And I'll just tell you a little bit what makes India uncomfortable. So, with due regard and respects to all the views here, I think what makes us uncomfortable is that when we see the China factor unfolding. Now, I am going to come to the both of you to sort of understand that better, but we do see from India's perspective that China's rise on the world stage, let alone the world, but even in the larger Indo-Pacific in Asia, and has been destabilizing. China's rise has not been, peaceful. Look at the situation in the South China Sea. Look at China's claims over Arunachal Pradesh and, Sikkim. Sorry, and the northern sector in Ladakh, etc. Look at what China is, claiming with respect to Philippines and all these countries. Look at how China is going to treat Taiwan. And China is now the biggest defense supplier to both Bangladesh and to Pakistan. So, from India's perspective, I mean, I take all your criticism of India not being, I would say, resilient enough to understand what the people on the ground wanted. I myself said that yes, I do see that there is a problem of India's status quoism, right? That we are late. I would say we arrive late at understanding what the people on the ground want, especially in the neighborhood. But connecting it back to China, I do see that China today is the biggest defense supplier, which is extremely destabilizing to India. We also see that the Bangladeshi interim government, the political advisor, if I'm not wrong, he recently went to China and spoke of a new era of friendship and cooperation, etc. We also know that another of your major strategic partners, especially in the defense sector, has been Turkey, and those are also reasons that makes India concerned about what is it which is playing out in its immediate neighborhood. And of course, there are more problems. I'm going to come to that also. But right now, let's discuss the China factor. From India's perspective, there is a string of pearls that we are worried about, when it comes to China. We see that China has officially maintained that containing the rise of India in this Indian subcontinent is one of China's, foreign policy goals. China wants a multipolar world, but a unipolar Asia led by China. And India wants a multipolar world as well as a multipolar Asia. You may disagree with me, but I want you now to discuss the China factor. First to Mehfooz Saab and then to you, Dr. Chima.
To start with,
Yeah.
Bangladesh wants a multipolar Asia.
Okay.
Okay, have you? And China being our arms supplier, it is now more than about 20 years story. China has been supplying arms for the last 20 years, much ahead of Sheikh Hasina's coming to power. So, in this 20 years of China supplying arms to Bangladesh, has Bangladesh become a military sort of country with military ambition? Has Bangladesh done anything that you can be very much alarmed about? But I agree, as a country, you have every right to be concerned, to be alert. Follow us, uh, factually see what Bangladesh is doing, factually see what China Bangladesh relationship is leading to. And if you have fears, then please tell Bangladesh government that, look here, please, we are concerned about this or that. But I mean, for us, I mean, we need both India's friendship and China's friendship. We have
Okay.
benefited by our relationship with India. We have benefited by our relationship with China. Many of our major projects are funded by China. So China's relationship, as we see it from our end, is more developmental rather than militaristic. But
Mhm.
please, you have every right to follow us, to view everything, but base it on facts. That's my request.
Chima Saab, what are your views on the China factor, the China hand, which truly is an Indian concern here?
Well, I think India should not have concern. For example, the level of defense agreements India is having with the United States and the level of security arrangement, being a comprehensive global strategic partner of the United States, and still be concerned about Bangladesh and Pakistan in case if they have any kind of a they're getting any kind of a military hardware from China must not the Indian government. For example, for Pakistan, if I speak, all the channels or all the areas have stopped. We are not getting any kind of a military hardware from Europe, from United States, from any other country in the world. We can't get it. So we have
Yeah.
only two options: either it is Turkey or China. So
Hmm.
we are not allowed. We can't get that. Even I remember recently we wanted to get a helicopter from Turkey, and the engines were American, and that needed a third party guarantee, and the Americans refused for this. So
Refused.
we don't have any choice. So ultimately, for India, all the shops are open. For
Hmm.
Pakistan, we only have a couple of shops, and we are going to get whatever we want to have. And we have seen back in 2019, India did a surgical strike, and India is spending billions of dollars.
Hmm.
India has remained largest arms importer for a decade, and as per the CIPRI report. So
Yeah.
so we can't go for a vessel to vessel competition with India, but what we would like is, and that's why we bring in our, nuclear deterrence in it. That's why we bring in that we don't want to get into any kind of a fight with India. So we are having our air superiority. We want to match at least our air superiority with India. So that we can compete in case there is an adventurism or jingoism from this ultra right wing government in India. So, and that is our right to have military hardware from China or from wherever we can get. But that's only we don't have any option left with us.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm happy this difference was also brought out, that in the case of Pakistan, of course, the reliance on China or Turkey is has a different context than in the case of Bangladesh. I see from Mehfooz Saab's views that he's probably saying that even Bangladesh would like to see a more multipolar Asia, and in fact, Bangladesh-India relations are also more sustainable. Of course, we have a porous border. Bangladesh's border with India is the only land border, right, that it has. So it has genuine stakes there. But why I mentioned the China factor was, of course, yeah, we discussed some part of it. The other part is that also from India's perspective, what concerns us is that the insurgency bit in the Northeast that has been a concern for India and the Indian state. I mean, what is your opinion when I say that we find that this situation with now Pakistan, Bangladesh, somewhere being getting this backing by China, it may not be the a very clear cut binary of calling it a third front right now, but this sheer dynamic of these things coming together in a certain way, what implication would it have for India's insurgency problem in the Northeast? We have seen radical elements. We have seen that ISI kind of supports that. If ISI was earlier bringing it from Pakistan, now they also have a way through Bangladesh. And how does Bangladesh view it? Are there any internal discussions on making sure that this doesn't happen, because this is about destabilizing the entire region? And I would also like to ask, Dr. Chima to come later and tell me what is Pakistan assessment of how India thinks about it, because I'm all for an open debate here. Yeah.
Yes, please. But let me ask you, what interest will it serve of Bangladesh to
Mhm.
have some sort of an insurgency in the Northeast? I mean, we
No,
are
I
a
mean, it
we
gives
are a
another passage. It gives another passage, is
Why
what I'm
should
trying
we
to
do that? Please, why should we do that? What is of our interest? We are a poor country. We want to economically develop.
say.
Now,
Okay.
why should I, if Pakistan has a strategy that is their own, why should I become a pawn in somebody else's country? See, this
Hmm.
is the mindset that Pakistan, ISI changed the government. So now ISI will take us to border skirmishes. I mean, that is not of interest to Bangladesh. People
Right.
of Bangladesh do not want to be anybody's enemy. We want our prosperity, and to that extent, we want good relationship with India, very good relationship with India. It is a
Yeah.
win. It must be a win-win relationship. Now, your question, it really is based on the assumption that now that we are having a little friendly relationship Pakistan, it will now we will allow Pakistan to go to the border. Are we mad? Don't we know what is our self interest? You don't think that we know what is our self interest. We will never allow a third country to use our border for anybody else's purpose. We want a friendly, equal bilateral relationship with India that is win-win to both sides, and we will not allow any third country to use our territory to have their own to serve their own purpose. Bangladesh wants peace with
Hmm.
India, with everybody, but
Right.
definitely with India.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you mentioned that. And before of course, I will sort of build on that. But before that, let me come to Dr. Chima. Dr. Chima, what are your views on that? How do you, the think tanks in Pakistan, the scholarly debate in Pakistan? I mean, whatever you can share with us, do let us know what is your assessment of how we view, this vulnerability. I mean, Mehfooz Saab was absolutely critical and saying that please do not think that Bangladesh doesn't know what is good for it. But from your perspective and from what is going on in Pakistan, please feel free. Yeah.
Well, India has started thinking and learning that, there are two big Islamic states on Indian border, and we have an
Mm-hmm.
inherent threat for these are, and the day Hasina Wajid left, the very day the propaganda that came from India on Bangladesh was that, the radical Islamists are going to take over. So
Mm-hmm.
earlier Indians were saying the radical Islamists in Pakistan, and now you have this term radical Islamists in Bangladesh. So I think the
Mm-hmm.
one thing India has learned after 9/11 is this radical Islamic world. Before
Mm-hmm.
that, they never thought that how to portray or how to link, for example, even how to portray the or to link this entire struggle in Kashmir in international relations.
Mm-hmm.
So, in my assessment, the because the Indian government keeps looking Pakistan and Bangladesh from an Islamic lens, and majority maybe the foreign minister is not talking, but Indian media has a very big mouth. Whatever they start talking in the evening, that makes a narrative in the evening, in the next morning. So in my assessment, there is nothing to worry, and don't try to link or portray wherever there are Muslims, these are terrorists, or these are Islamists, or these are mujahideen, or these are, and don't link Kashmir with Palestine and Gaza. So I think that is an inherent mindset, and that is basically a conversation which goes on. So asking, I think I agree with him that why Bangladeshi will go for a sort of an insurgency. Why you are trying to link or trying to portray as if there is an insurgency on the Pakistani side, or in Kashmir, or in the northeast. So I think these are just hypothetical statements. Nothing is coming out, and uh, I feel very sorry, by the way, that these days, the Indian media is calling Bangladesh as a radical Islamic groups and radical Islamic nation. This is what they call, the Indian media calls about Pakistan. This is what they're calling. So you have to accept the reality. Bangladesh and Pakistan are two Islamic states. For one reason or the other, we are Islamic nations. You have to start living with us the way India wants to live with the Middle Eastern countries, the way India is
Mm-hmm.
happy engaging with the GCC, with other, Indonesian president is in. So India is happy to accept every Islamic country in Southeast Asia and Middle East, but not two Islamic nation on its border. I think that is where you need to move on.
No, yeah, I mean, I do understand where that's coming from. And but I would want to ask from Mehfooz Saab, one of the perceptions that you see in the Indian media, in the Indian audiences. Of course, we are all living in the age of social media, where a lot of unverified things are often, or not only discussed but also propagated, and there are handles that are doing that. But I would just like to know, and I think this is a query that I keep also getting from a lot of audiences here, is that when the Hasina government fell, and the kind of attacks that then started out on the minorities, especially the Hindu minorities, that kind of became an issue, for India. India became concerned. Indian, the MEA, the foreign minister, we've given statements on that, that we are concerned about it. I would just like to learn from you here is that what were the arrangements done from the Bangladeshi side to make sure that this doesn't happen? Because I have read your views and you've said that this has been blown out of proportion. But I would like to know from you, how do you think this was blown out of proportion? And what really, how vulnerable are the minorities in Bangladesh today?
No, first of all, most of the Indian media's report were not based on facts.
Hmm.
Number one.
Okay.
Number
Yeah.
two, yes, some incidents did occur, and I have said in previous interviews that
Yes.
we as a Bangladeshi, we feel, in a way, we feel that it shouldn't have happened.
Hmm.
Nobody should be unsafe in Bangladesh. But A, much of it was false. B, some of it was exaggerated, and what
Okay.
happened was distorted. And none of the Indian media really did fact checking,
Hmm.
really fact checking. And if there was a BBC, and thank God it was BBC, because if we did it, you would not have believed it. BBC identified, I think, about 20 items where it was false. There was one particular incident where a video was shown of a temple burning, but it was
Yeah.
actually an Awami League office which was being burned, which again I don't support, but it was being burned and it had the temple behind it. So all
Hmm.
sorts of discussion. I mean, but it is true that incidents happened. It shouldn't have happened. We must, as a country, assure all the minorities their safety. But what happened, please, this is really very important. Indian media made us like a Hindu hating country. Hindu killing. You are using the word genocide. Have you
Hmm.
tried to see what is the meaning of genocide? And it continues. Even in yesterday India Today video, I saw that the term being used, genocide, genocide. So
Hmm.
please, if we really want to build a relationship in the future, you say, I am quite concerned that things that have happened on the minorities, it shouldn't have, and we
Hmm.
must make every effort in the future that not a single minority is attacked or harassed, leave
Hmm.
alone killed.
Hmm.
But I
Hmm.
feel that the way Indian media covered it,
Hmm.
it showed that really there was no attempt to understand, but to stigmatize,
Okay.
and that's what happened.
Coming to you, Chima Saab, I also wanted a little bit of an understanding on what is right now Pakistan's concerns with its internal instability with respect to Imran Khan sentencing. And frankly, I asked you that question earlier, but we did not really go much into details. Is that what is Pakistan's view of managing its problems with the TPP, with Afghanistan? I mean, of course, there's a whole lot of regional geopolitics playing out there as well. I mean, just to sort of shift it a little bit and then take it to the western side of our borders. Yes.
Well, I think on this Pakistan's internal instability, I think this is a new normal. There is
Okay.
nothing to there is nothing to worry on this. For instance, when Imran Khan was in power, he put
Hmm.
everybody in jail, and now when he lost
Out
the
of
power,
power.
he is
Hmm.
in jail. So the question is, there is nothing new which we are seeing. So these cycles are coming and going. So we will continue to look at that. But I think the best thing right now is that Pakistan's economy is getting better. For
Okay.
example, just recently, there is a macroeconomic stability at the top level. The interest rate has come down, the inflation rate has come down. So things are getting better in this country. All what we need is we need a continuity. And we should stop, our politicians should stop victimizing the other politicians. So
Hmm.
if this continues, there is a lot of potential in this country. And coming to this point on this TTP Afghanistan, I think, in my personal assessment, Pakistan is now a member of a non-permanent, has a non-permanent seat in the UN Security Council. Pakistan is a member of Islamic State Al Qaeda Sanctions Committee. This is a
Hmm.
right time. This is the right time to internationalize this challenge in Afghanistan, where Afghan government has decided to host the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, which is a terrorist organization. They are continuously hosting them. They are giving them space, and they are targeting Pakistanis every day and Pakistani soldiers. So, unfortunately, we were not expecting that Afghan Taliban, after coming into power, They will
Mm-hmm.
decide to prefer over a non-state terrorist organization rather than a country which has been hosting millions of Afghan refugees for more than 4 decades. So this
Right.
was something very unfortunate, something we would not even imagining. So Pakistan's right now, what it can do is that it can go to the UN Security Council, it can go to the sanctions committee, it can
Mm-hmm.
put people, individuals, and organizations which have been
Mm-hmm.
unleashing terrorism in Pakistan, and
Mm-hmm.
particularly, it's not just Pakistan; it is the Chinese who are vulnerable. When Chinese
Mm-hmm.
get attacked in Balochistan, when
Mm-hmm.
Chinese get attacked in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, even yesterday, 2 days ago, Chinese got attacked in Afghanistan. So I think
Mm-hmm.
if this continues, this entire, the problem is that if this continues, this, and there are some forces which really want to stop Pakistan growing.
Mm-hmm.
Every 2, 3, 4 years there is some sort of an instability,
Mm-hmm.
and we have a strong military, there is a big resilience in this country, people really want to support the system here. Yeah, so Pakistanis have shown this resilience that we have been fighting this terrorism for more than about 2 decades now, and we do
Mm-hmm.
understand how to keep fighting for keeping Pakistan stable. And then there is a big concern in Pakistan, which I think the American President Donald Trump has raised that concern that Afghanistan have billions of dollars of weapons, and
Okay.
those weapons are going into the hands of the non-state actors, which they are targeting to Pakistan every day. So, in my assessment, this political instability is a new normal.
Mm-hmm.
Coming to this question that on this TTP and all this, I think the Pakistani military, the Pakistani civil society, the government, they will continue to fight any nefarious designs of these terrorist organizations. And the economic stability is booming. Just recently, World Bank has announced $20 billion of investments and packages for Pakistan for next 10 years. That is equivalent to the money which came through the CPAC, China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. So we are on
Mm-hmm.
a track. All what we need is a continuity and stability.
Yeah, I mean, frankly, yes, this is a complex problem when it comes to Pakistan, that Pakistan is not able to maintain that continuity, as you mentioned. But I also wish to understand that, okay, two things from you quickly before I go back to Mehfooz Saab. Is that on the one hand, yes, there is a question of Pashtuns. Millions of these refugees from Afghanistan are also living inside Pakistan. So when you go militaristically speaking, if you go too bombastic on controlling the TPP out there, I mean, controlling that, you also run the risk of alienating these people that are living in Pakistan. Do you think that reading is correct? That's the first one for you. And the second one is that there are already talks of a tripartite arrangement between Iran, Afghanistan, and India about trying to, shift the exports and imports from Afghanistan to Bandar Abbas and Chabahar instead of the Karachi port, because that is also one dependence that Afghanistan has had. So these two things, your quick views on that, and then I can go back to Mehfooz Saab.
Well, on this, I think the Pashtuns in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, or whether they are in Balochistan, they are all
Mm-hmm.
supporting the Pakistani state's effort to eliminate these terrorist organizations, and they
Mm-hmm.
are supporting. So the TTP or any terrorist organization does
Mm-hmm.
not control an inch of Pakistani land. They have been
Mm-hmm.
hiding, they have been moving around. It's not that they are somewhere, they have a control over one territory, even not half a kilometer territory they control. But
Okay.
obviously, they're hiding. They're lone wolves. They come and go, and they keep moving from Afghanistan to Pakistan and from Pakistan to Afghanistan. So that is
Mm-hmm.
another thing. On this tripartite, the businesses flow where there is a flexibility. If the
Mm-hmm.
Afghan Taliban really want to go and want to have a Chabahar rather than the Karachi port, that is their choice. They should go for that. And I think even if Pakistan will hold them, we can't hold them because it will not be possible. The businesses always get encouraged where they find space, but at the same time,
Mm-hmm.
remember, we are losing billions of dollars in taxes because
Okay.
Afghanistan, the smuggling which is done by Afghanistan,
Mm-hmm.
all this, even the Pakistani businessmen, they have been importing billions of dollars of goods from abroad on the name of Afghanistan, but that all gets dispersed in our own country. So I
Hmm.
think if this will stop, there are many challenges within Pakistan's economy, or to whom we call grey economy, which generates bad governance, which
Okay.
generates into corruption and other things. So if Afghanistan will move for Chabahar port or Bandarbas or anywhere else, I think Pakistan should not worry. And at the end of the day, businesses go where they find comfort.
All right. No, so I mean, that was a realistic take. Mehfooz Saab, of course, I have to ask you this thing about coming back to the fact that India is also trying now, despite what has happened, to move forward. I mean, my reading is that Indian side has been also forthcoming in us issuing statements that we do not endorse Sheikh Hasina's views, for example, on whatever she's been saying on Bangladesh, and we intend to have a more, I would say, independent engagement with Bangladesh. So, with respect to that view, I mean, what do you think of it? Of course, I'm sure everybody welcomes the fact that we have to all move forward. But in your opinion, how can this really be done? Of course, I understand that first of all, the question is that you have to get the lens right and accord the agency to Bangladeshi people. I know. Yes, because that's been one of the key takeaways. But other than that, what could be other frameworks? Do you think India should be looking at more developmental projects, should be trying to engage economically? I mean, in your view, how do we take the conversation forward? And after that, I am going to ask you what you think of Hasina being in Delhi right now. Yeah.
Well, listen, let's say between you and me, okay,
Uh-huh.
we are trying to be friends. So
Yes.
when it begins, so there is Mahfuz Anam with his views, and there is Mahfuz Anam as a person.
Okay.
Now you may question my views, but if you question me in my honesty, my integrity, then you can't have a friendship. So
True.
first request I have is that India should try to understand Bangladesh.
Okay.
Well, India helped us in 71. We are very grateful. But
Mm-hmm.
after that, 53 years of relationship has passed. So first thing is that what is Bangladesh? What is a Bengali Muslim? Now, I personally think that Indian perception is that we are Bengalis, and the fact that we are majority Muslims is something that they either do not understand or do not want to understand, or keep it out of their mind. So whenever they see a lot of mosques in Bangladesh, or people going to prayer with their topis on, or people keeping beard, they become,
Mm-hmm.
oh my god, is it another terrorist country? And your experience with Pakistan, I'm not going to comment on it. That's separate. Two countries have their own experience. But my only plea is that don't try to understand us with your experience of Pakistan. It's a different country, different people. We are a Bengali speaking, Bengali cultural heritage and Islamic cultural heritage. So you have to see us in this duality.
Okay.
Now, if I may, that we were a part of Pakistan, and in 1947, the Muslims of Bengal voted for Pakistan. Okay,
Right.
so that shows one mindset, and that same Bengali Muslims broke Pakistan in a time frame of 23 years. So,
Mm-hmm.
what does it mean? That we are just as proud Muslims as we are a proud Bengalis.
But
But
what we also see is that every time there is a cricket match going on, no matter who's playing against, India, Bangladeshis would always support the other side. I'm just saying that, because this is something that was also noticed. Do you think in the minds of the people, Mehfooz Saab, not scholars like you who truly understand the many more layers of what goes into making of a national identity and all of the other complex things that we are discussing, but for the common person, right, the common Bangladeshi, what does he rejoice? Does he
but
rejoice? Yes. Yeah.
No, so what I'm trying to say is that the relationship between a huge neighbor and a small country is always complex. You will
Okay.
have Mexico always being suspicious of the United States. Even
Right.
Canadians are suspicious of the Americans.
Mm-hmm.
China, Vietnam, is questioning Chinese intentions. So is Nepal. So is Sri Lanka. So I personally think that not too much should be read in
Okay.
that. More importantly is that India must, in a way, try and take a re-look into their relationship with Bangladesh, understand its people,
Mm-hmm.
understand what makes us tick, understand where we want to go. So we are, as I said, we are a very proud Bengali nation. We are a very proud Muslim heritage nation. So this is a combination. And in
Okay.
this combination, our cultural identity is in a way encompasses these both. The first step is to understand that we are Bengalis and we are also Muslims. Number two, we are a very peace loving nation. We will never go into terrorism, we will never go into extremism. This is like the syncretic Bengali heritage. And here I think there are many Indian scholars. They have written very good books on the syncretic heritage, but there are also books which are giving a very different perspective. So number
Right.
one, understanding. Number two is really partnering with us for our economic development.
Uh-huh.
Now, India has done many things, but India can do much more things. Number three is that there are some basic issues like water,
Yeah, of
which
course.
has to be resolved. Now, why we get always stuck there, I really don't know, but we do. Then there is the question of imbalance in trade. There is a question of many other questions. And given the geography, if you just look at the map of Bangladesh,
Mm-hmm.
India is our literally our only neighbor,
Yeah.
and Myanmar basically is very small. So in a neighborhood like this, and
Yeah.
with India being so much more powerful, economic powerful, they have technology, they have knowledge, they have many things, research. So Bangladesh can greatly benefit
Right.
from this relationship. But unfortunately, where it goes wrong is the first, I said, narrative of we are being an ungrateful nation. Now
Mm-hmm.
it has been added to by we are a Hindu hating nation. Then we are always trying to sabotage India's security and Northeast. Can we get out of this mindset? I'm not
Right.
saying that you shouldn't have your security concerns. Please do have them. Observe us, study us, see us, and if we really are going towards some sort of a Indian security concern, then
Mm-hmm.
dialogue with us, tell us, inform us on the basis of facts, not on the basis of perception. Now,
Okay.
what is happening now is that India and Bangladesh's relationship with India with Pakistan is now opening up a bit. It was
Yeah.
basically frozen.
Yes.
Now we had good relationship with India. We had practically no relationship with Pakistan. The
Hmm.
new reality will be that we will try our best to have good relationship with India, but we will also have relationship with Pakistan, which is the second largest member
Hmm.
of South Asia. We will have
Right.
good relationship with Sri Lanka, Nepal, everybody.
Okay.
No, in from our side, no bias, and we
Right.
will not allow a third country to use our territory to hurt anybody else, and in this
Right.
case especially India. Now
When
that
do you think? Yeah. 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 Please, please. Sorry. No,
no,
no.
so
You
I
please can.
think that is the beginning.
Hmm.
That is the beginning, and if we can go there,
Mm-hmm.
then I think a very good relationship is in the prospect. It is in the cards, and as you know, I think our chief advisor openly said that he would favor the revival
Yes.
of SARC. Now, I
Yes.
think India needs to look at SARC also. Why did it fail? My view is that it is the lack of cooperation between Pakistan and India due to which SARC failed. But
Yes.
every region has collaborative organization. We can learn from ASEAN. I think
Mm-hmm.
SARC can be a good platform, but of course,
Mm-hmm.
India and Pakistan's rivalry and their perception of each other will
Yeah.
always, harm it. But can
Yeah.
we take a second look? Can we take a second look? We do need regional cooperation.
Mm-hmm.
South Asia is the only region where regional cooperation is at its lowest.
Lowest. Yes. It's the most actually. It's the least connected region in the world. Frankly,
Yes,
that's
yes.
a reality of South Asia.
Okay.
Yes, we have covered it earlier, but I think
Okay.
all of
So
that also.
one last point, madam.
Yeah.
One last
Sure.
point
Yeah.
is that
Yeah.
our view is that
Mm-hmm.
India's definition of friendship
Mm-hmm.
is not really a definition of independent friends. In other words, India thinks we are friends as long as we toe their line. The moment I start thinking independently, then the friendship becomes questioned. Now, Lyndon Johnson had once said that when two people agree on everything, it means only one is doing the thinking.
Mm-hmm.
So if a friendship is defined by only one doing the thinking, then it is not a friendship. So Bangladesh and India friendship will have to accommodate that we will have differences and we will have similarities. But the
Right.
friendship is that the difference we solve in a friendly, understanding manner. Now, many years ago, if I may slightly quote myself, many years ago, I wrote a piece and I had mentioned it earlier also, that in
Mm-hmm.
my view, India has only two neighbors, China and Pakistan. The rest of us are mere geographic entities who are praised when we obey, but reprimanded when we assert.
Hmm.
Can we get out of that?
Yeah. No, I'm glad you mentioned that, Mefosa, because the end of the day, what we understand is that we are living in a world which is extremely fluid. I'm sure Chimasa would also agree. It's a very fluid world. Lot of things have happened that have completely upended the strategic calculus of most countries, including that of India's. And I'm not getting into one example here or there. We can start from COVID, go to Russia-Ukraine war, go to what happened in between Hamas and Israel, and actually it kind of goes on. And frankly, any realistic discussion on problems can only happen when we learn to agree where we can find convergences and learn to respect each other when there are divergences. So, maximizing of convergences and minimizing of divergences perhaps is the way to look forward and is the kind of strategic realism that we all require. And we have to really know how far the legacy of the past comes in the way of us, getting embarking on that new era, which should be guided by strategic realism, keeping our own, nation's interests first. So I think we are all on the same page as far as that is concerned. But if I just, because this has been absolutely, riveting in terms of a discussion. I always knew this is going to be interesting, but the very reason for asking the both of you to come together is that I wanted to break out of the mold of trying to get together Indians to understand what is happening there. And like I said, right, we have to also break out of this group in group and out group mentality. We really have to sort of talk to each other than at each other. But Chima Saab, you have also been writing, you have been talking about it, you know the Indian audience so well. If I may ask you now to tell us two things. A, what is the way forward in your understanding? I mean, you can choose to answer that. You can also direct us to read some of the works that you may have written. And the other thing is that what do you recommend to take this discussion forward? What kind of scholars we should be speaking to, what kind of themes should we be discussing, how do we actually go beyond the trust deficit that we have incurred? There are very genuine reasons for it, but that alone doesn't answer the question, because in the subcontinent we are in it together, and one person's instability is obviously impacting the other. So I think in that respect, how do we take this conversation forward, and your recommendations?
Well, when what I would say is that uh, India, as a bigger country in the region,
Mm-hmm.
it must come out of this mindset that they have to force other countries to accept Indian hegemony in the region, or India to be the policeman in the region. On one hand, India talks of uh, Asia to be multipolar. India talks of multi-alignment. But at the same time, India wants that all these countries in the region to be in its ambit. When,
Mm-hmm.
for example, when Sir was mentioning, this entire concept of SARC, it got dismantled, and India started working on BIMSTEC and Colombo Security Conclave and SAGAR and other things. So they raised multiple institutional models, and they
Mm-hmm.
disbanded this particular one group, which was
Mm-hmm.
connecting the entire region. And that's where I
Mm-hmm.
call micromanaging. When
Right.
SARC when SARC was dismantled or it was not working, no other country raised a voice to make it effective and active. And thanks to Sir Yunus, who raised this voice that we have to make this active. So that's where I call this was micromanaging of India, asking every other country, you cannot open up SARC. We will not get into a table with Pakistan because this is, for example, they have their view of that they're sponsoring terrorism, so on and so forth. So
Mhm.
I think this independent voice which has come from Sheikh Muhammad Yunus Saab from Bangladesh, we appreciate. And for this matter, I think other countries need to come on board. There is
Mhm.
a lot of hope, there is a lot of voice for regional connectivity. But if India will believe that, okay, our region Pakistan is on the other side and we are looking towards Indo-Pacific, and we, there is the end of South Asia, and we don't believe in this region anymore, we don't want to work with Pakistan, and we want to work with the countries which are in the Indo-Pacific, that's where the future is being written. I think India needs to come out of this mindset. There is a
Mhm.
natural connectivity between the people of Pakistan and India. For example, not letting cricket teams to come in Pakistan. Don't call it diplomacy. You don't call it anything. You call it as you want to assert. For example, asserting Pakistan in the International Cricket Council. Okay,
Mhm.
we are not going to send this Pakistani team. That is not politics. That is something else. So the incumbent, the apparatus in New Delhi, they wants to disconnect the people of both countries. Moving on in any way.
No,
So
basically that was not the reason, Chima Saab. Chima Saab, the reason for that was that we let that happen for many years. In fact, we kind of pushed for it, and we totally understand the connectivity and all of that. But the issue was that somehow was made to look as if the terrorism that was coming from the Pakistani side, that cross border infiltration somehow doesn't matter. But this is something that we wanted to prioritize. So I know that this is something which is not the solution per se, but I think it was coming from the inner side. It also had the genuine concerns.
madam, when was last time the Indian state was targeted by the terrorist organizations? Pakistan is targeted every day. Listen, my point.
Mhm.
In Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, in Balochistan, in Karachi, the entire Chinese investment, that is in danger because the Chinese are, they're not trusting Pakistan. So India
Okay.
keep on harping the same thing. We are being targeted by non-state actors. The question is, it is Pakistan on everyday basis is being targeted. The violence in Pakistan has increased by 279%. So one odd incident that happened in India, in 2008, you are taking it 20 years ahead. Okay, this terrorism happened 20 years ago. We are not going to send the cricket team in this year. So I think, okay, you are an independent sovereign country. India can do this. But remember, everything will have repercussions. Everything.
Mhm.
So these
Mhm.
days, the more India talks with Pakistan, it means you are normalizing Pakistan. Since India's policies of isolation of Pakistan, we do
Mhm.
understand. But remember, it is not going to work. There is the rest of the world we want to engage. And if, that's where I call micromanaging. That's why Indian government has been micromanaging the entire region. So if Muhammad Yunus today he starts saying that we need to talk and even the
Mhm.
SARC to be active, I am sure 200% the Indian government will not let Muhammad Yunus to work on a revival of the SARC because they want to be the hegemon in the region. They want to be the policeman in the region. So let's move on. India may be the bigger economy. And what I said earlier, India is happy to have every Islamic state in India other than Bangladesh and Pakistan. So I
Mhm.
think, and let me quote one final sentence,
Mhm.
which was written by C. Raja Mohan.
Mhm.
And that is about India, that India's South Asia debate. He says that India's South Asia debate is unfortunately is sentimental, self-referential, and disconnected from the changing regional reality. This is not what I am saying. This is what Raja Mohan Saab said. So the point is, you need to move on. That's I would say. But we also believe, since this incumbent apparatus is there, it is not going to move on. But I think you should do this.
What do you both of you think about Donald Trump coming? Do you think this is going to have an impact? Because everybody seems to think that Donald Trump coming is going to have an impact on everything under the sun. And since we are also under the sun, can we? I'm sorry, this is just going on, but then how do I not ask this low hanging fruit? This is such a low hanging fruit.
His biggest success is his unpredictability.
Okay, good way. Chima, what do you think? Donald Trump back? I mean, I have been writing all sorts of, extremely lengthy analyses on what Donald Trump
Well,
back in White House means. But
obviously,
yes,
the Trump is an eccentric personality, so we don't know what is going to happen tomorrow.
okay.
But yes, he's a nationalist, and whatever he will be doing for the United States, I believe he really believes in making America great again in terms of bringing a lot of money into the United States. So, and diplomatic version will be, I think, his biggest tool, which
Okay,
seems yeah.
so make America great again and unpredictability. We kind of all agree to that, and then we will see how kind of that plays out. And maybe I'll request the two of you to come back at some other time so that we can have like a Donald Trump centric discussion on our subcontinent and our regional geopolitics. But then just to sort of add to that, because Mehfooz Saab, you didn't really mention anything. Do you think that there's certain think tanks in Bangladesh whose work should be more mainstream, certain scholars whose work should be more mainstream? I mean, if you could give us anything like that.
Okay, I'm really very sorry to say that Bangladesh's research ability, is not as strong as it should be. But
Okay.
there are think tanks in Bangladesh whose study has been quite serious, and I think
Uh-huh.
if India sort of takes a look at it, we'll both benefit. But my fundamental position is that we need to have greater understanding in South Asia, and
Right.
South Asia's future depends on greater understanding. Now,
Yeah.
India has had a history of problems with Pakistan. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not going there. Pakistan is not my country. But
Hmm.
if you now repeat that same
Mm-hmm.
Pakistan's experience with Bangladesh, then
Mm-hmm.
you are having another set of misunderstanding. I
Mm-hmm.
strongly believe there's enough goodwill in Bangladesh for a good understanding with India, but
Right.
the ball is in India's court, and the last 5 6 months behavior of the Indian media has greatly damaged our own perception. I mean, I have
Mm-hmm.
always been in a win-win relationship with India, but having read and seen the total like blanket categorization of what has happened in Bangladesh has really made me very doubtful that
Mm-hmm.
how will the mindset actually change, because in the media, in the era of social media,
Mm-hmm.
hatred sells, negativism sells, bitterness sells, positive goodness goes a little behind. So when everybody is trying to get more eyeballs for their YouTube, or more subscription to their YouTube, and and the experiences that more you preach hatred,
Yeah.
more you hate other person, your viewership goes up. So this is a new factor in India Bangladesh relationship, which is the social media. The intellectuals, policymakers will have to overcome that, and we must go forward. Bangladesh, my view is that Bangladesh is fully interested in a
Mm-hmm.
win-win relationship with India.
Okay. Now, thank you to both of you for a very candid. I think you would agree with me that this was much better than what we expected in the first place. We tried to have a 40-minute discussion. We are already over an hour, and I'm sure this comes right on India's Republic Day. So the concern that we feel, as this major country in the region, I think there couldn't have been a better timing for addressing
Please,
these issues, and also, gee,
please
yes,
forgive
please.
me. I forgot to wish Indian people and Indian government a very, very glorious Republic Day. Our greetings to the people of India. And thank you for interviewing me on this day. We really wish India all success.
Thank you so much. This was quite symbolic of where India looks at itself. Of course, there are genuine challenges that India faces, but at the same time, I think there's also a lot of forthcomingness in the Indian strategic posture. There should be, in fact, more of it, and one of the ways in which we can build it is basically by discussing it in a way that we talk to each other. The very point that I started out with.
It was undoubtedly one of the most riveting discussions on the issue and addressed several underlying themes in their subjective assessments. The most relevant key takeaway here is that India needs to make more efforts in according agency to Bangladesh and its people. While the Indian establishment has shown a willingness for it, it remains a work in progress. Second, the Bangladeshi expert was of the view that it is in Dhaka's interest to multi align, just as much as it is in India's interest to multi align. Dhaka's foreign policy, according to him, must be judged from its actions and not prejudices. Both experts alluded to the complexity of the South Asian experience, but agreed that India's perception of its neighborhood continues to be what Professor Raja Mohan has called sentimental and self referential, which often comes in the way of gaining strategic clarity, so that India could gain not just military or economic capabilities, but a more comprehensive national power in the regional geopolitics. India's tryst with strategic clarity must continue. There is lots we need to unlearn and relearn, just as our neighbors have to do as well. You were watching the Print Worldview with me, Swasti, and I promise to be back with another insightful discussion for the same. Stay tuned.